Love these islands and all that they share, warmth, love, happiness, and time to care. Untold tales of times long past, of kings and queens, of this and that. Trust in us and you'll know no cares. Throw back your arms and take to the air.
Good evening. My name is John Del Rosario. I am the moderator of tonight's discussion on Article 12. This evening I'm joined by the Citizens for Change of Article 12, a local organization, a nonprofit organization advocating permanent change to several provisions or all of the provisions under Article 12. There's a little history behind this, and this is based on Article 12 is based on the land alienation provision of the CNMI Covenant. That provision provides for us to revisit this issue 25 years after we became U.S. citizens in 1986. The group has researched and analyzed what these provisions are under Article 12. We have done away with the legal language, the real estate language, and have simplified this issue so that you can understand with clarity what entails Article 12. Eventually, and in subsequent presentations, we will be sharing with you, or sharing with us and the rest of the general public, your views on these issues, such to promote a healthy discussion, frank discussions on how we feel about such issues as the prohibition of the fee simple provision, which prohibits the sale of land to people who are not NMDs. Or conversely, why we should change this and allow our people to take 100% full ownership of what they claim as their land. The current provision does not give you that right. The current provision only gives you 50% right or what you claim to be your private land. This has got to change. And we will be discussing this issue as we go along. There are other provisions under Article 12 that we really think should be looked at very carefully, frankly, so that we understand what they mean, their implications. Is it good for us? Is it no good for us? Having all done the analysis and reviewed these issues with the panelists tonight, we have come up with a decision that it is best that we get rid of Article 12 because all three provisions, major provisions, are anti-culture, anti-tradition. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, please permit me first, before we go on, to introduce our guests tonight. And they are Efrain Camacho, who is the owner of EFC engineering firm here on Saipan, and Mr. Vince Seaman, an attorney who's with a private law firm here, also on Saipan. The founding fathers, my friends, even found out that, or rather recognized that such fundamental rights as the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. One of the fundamental, or rather the derivatives of this fundamental right is the right to own property. It is something that you cannot infringe, nor violate. Only you can make final disposition on what is your land. And with this, I'd like to ask our guest panelist, Mr. Efrain Camacho, to share his views on this matter.
Thank you, John. First, I'm glad that you clarify. Article 12 deals with privately owned land, not government, not public land. And we need to understand that because the definition or provisions regarding Article 12, which deals with privately owned land, is different from the article provisions dealing with government or public land. We have been working on these issues for at least 2 years now, and we have studied, and what we want to do from here on out is present to our viewers factual items regarding Article 12, the provisions. And I like to point out that in many instances, we find out that there's only one and only one item that people know about Article 12, and that is that Article 12 is supposed to protect the land ownership, and it limits it to only NMD. But there are other provisions that Vince and I will be presenting tonight, and the other segments that we will be developing for future airing that are really, really rather interesting, to say the least, but certainly something that we really need to revisit because they are in many ways contrary to how we as a citizen or we as Chamorros and Carolinians were brought up to be. And for example, we want to talk about adoptions. We want to talk about inheritance through marriage. We want to talk about, what is the other item, Vince?
Blood quantum.
Blood quantum. By the way, blood quantum, as we all know, 25% is the limitations. Beyond that or below that, you can't own land fee simple. So there are provisions that many of us are not aware of that we hope it is our goal to show the community through these presentations factual things, not what we think, but rather what is said. And we encourage people to read the section by section analysis of both the covenant and the Article 12 itself, because it's very, very clear on what really are involved under the Article 12 provisions.
Let me go back and try to reiterate, Mr. Camacho, what you just said. Article 12, under this provision, the prohibition on fee simple. Let us first understand one thing. This is about you and your right to own your land. As it is, I'd like to emphasize this one more time. You only own half of what you think is your land. In other words, it is your land by permission, which makes it not your land. For instance, if this pen is my pen, it is either my pen or it is not my pen. So this is the way it is with your land. Understandably, there are so many people who try to come up with ghost stories about allowing others from without who are not NMDs to own land. No, no, no. This is not about the sale of land. This is about you, your right now, for us to change the current provision so that you can own your land 100%. As it is today, only half of that property is actually yours.
And John, may I add one more item that really we need to focus on is the definition of an NMD. Mm-hmm. Okay, NMD, those are people that can own land fee simple. But what is the definition of an NMD? And it's really a political definition. It is simply a definition that our framer of the Constitution agreed to, and has no relation to blood or whatsoever. It's strictly a political definition. In fact, if you read through the section by section analysis of both the covenant and the Constitution, it never talks about race at all. It talks about a date, 1950 to be specific.
Mm. Now, if I may just go back and try to recap this in tomorrow. May lusa manyanao, well, si John Del Rosario, kumunudok testi na inasura na puengi. Irason na manmaktua nga panelus put para me presenta hafa estamun hadjan in analisa, in estudiaji, put todo asunto ni tinetaka artikulo 12. The covenant and agwaad mafananan land alienation provision and a halimiti hadi sina mangaitano gwiniz and hadi tisina mangaitano. The section 805 the Papay Covenant has said dihid bumisita tati estina asunto 25 años después de Munhadjan man ciudadano americano in 1986.